Guys, good morning. Hope you're having a good Thursday so far. We're watching Little Nutcracker on PBS this morning. Your orange is right there on the table. It's right on, you have to eat at the table. Okay, sorry, it's right at the table. As some of you know, I hung out with Kelsey from Little Bits of Real Food yesterday, and I was looking while I was working. I had this bag with me that I take with me in the airport, and as I'm looking at toys, I realized that I have a hamburger in a Ziploc bag left in that bag from the airplane. So here it is, baby. It's right here. There it is. It's your orange. We're really passionate about oranges in our household and Cheerios. So, anything happened over the last 24 hours that we should know about? I think so. I think we have some interesting news. I'm going to kind of hide in this side room. The kids are really into this production. So, I feel like it's a good little culture this morning. So, let's talk a little bit about what's going on with the shutdown. Let me see what Liberty's up to. Oh, okay, she's really upset about the mice in the Nutcracker. Okay, anyhow, the news provides really good contrast for us on certain days, and today is no exception because we have some movement when it comes to the government shutdown that we should watch here at home. In the meantime, we have something going on in another country, Venezuela, that sort of can give us some perspective, I think, about what's going on here. So here's what you need to know about the government shutdown. You have two bills that could potentially end the government shutdown that are going to hit the floor of the Senate today. Neither bill is expected to pass. One bill is for the Democrats, one bill is for the Republicans. The Democrats are trying to pass something that passed the House, which is the majority of the Democrats, have the House. So they've already passed a bill. If it passed the Senate, that would be a passed bill overall, right? But it's not going to pass the Senate because you need 60 votes to pass any bill in the Senate in this particular case, and neither party has 60 votes. What the Democrats are trying to pass is some funding that doesn't have any money at all for the border wall, for any border barrier, which is a non-starter for the president. In the meantime, Republicans are bringing the proposal by the president that is allowing some temporary legal status for a few groups that Democrats have advocated for in the past. But here's the problem. The Republicans slid into this bill, and top Republicans are actually criticizing them for this. Newt Gingrich is one of them, former House Speaker, strong conservative voice, is saying, listen, if you want the Democrats to join you, you can't do stuff like this. So they slid into this bill some provisions that make it more difficult for folks to get asylum or apply for asylum if they're in Central American countries. So Democrats are not going to go for that. I mean, it's just that. And that's what Newt Gingrich is saying. He's like, if you guys really want to make a deal, make a deal. But don't try to slide things in that they're not going to like. So both sides are saying that they have something to offer, but they're really not offering the other side what they want. So here we are, government shutdowns going to continue. In the meantime, State of the Union address, you're going to hear a lot about this today. Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, said to Donald Trump about a week ago, hey, I don't think that we should do the State of the Union because, the lack of government funding, there's going to be a lack of security. The Department of Homeland Security was like, no, Speaker Pelosi, we have the security. The president can speak. The president accepted her invitation, and the speech was supposed to happen next week. Well, it's not going to happen because Speaker Pelosi basically said to the president, I have the power to bring up a vote that allows this address to happen at the House. The vote has to pass the House and the Senate. It's usually just procedural. It's like, oh, the president's going to come speak. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. Thank you. They agree on that. I know it's a miracle. But this year they don't. Speaker Pelosi said, I'm actually not even going to put it on the floor for a vote to invite you, officially invite this address to happen in the House chamber. So without that, the president really cannot come and speak in the traditional way that the State of the Union is given. Now, the president has all sorts of ways that he can give a State of the Union. He can write it. He could, was for 100 years was the way the State of the Union was given, by the way. It's only recently that we do these big televised State of the Unions. So he could do that. He could speak from the Oval Office. I mean, he has some different things that he can do. But the president has said, okay, let's postpone it. So that's where we're at. I think one thing's missing from this conversation that I haven't seen in the news, and that's a reminder about what happened last year at this time. Which is, hey, chill out, okay? It's not a chill out. Watch the ballerinas. Look at them, they're so beautiful. So here's what's missing from the conversation. Last year at this time, the president gave a State of the Union that surprised Republicans and Democrats. I'm not saying he had this, this miraculous speech, but I think people are missing what he did last year. Last year, he stepped to the podium and he actually provided the groundwork for a major immigration reform compromise that would include, it was a 4-pillar agreement that he wanted to put forward to Congress. Republicans were really not happy with this because the president didn't give him a heads up on it. And Democrats are a little bit stunned because the president did something that they weren't expecting, which would grant legal status to more than 1 million people that are in the country right now with potentially illegal status. These are, adults now that were brought into the country illegally as children. So the president kind of mapped out this big plan, and then in the weeks that followed, it fell apart because of politics. But he did present something. And so what people are saying, like, hey, listen, like the State of the Union shouldn't happen, like the president's just going to come into the chambers and just, yell at the Democrats. He most certainly could have done that. But he also could have done something that was surprising. And now that's not going to happen. So, that's just because what he did last year. I think it's important for you to remember this. So here's where we stand. There's still a government shutdown. We're still sort of wondering what's going to happen next. And now that Newt Gingrich is really criticizing Republicans, he's on Fox News a lot. He's on these big Republican talk shows a lot. He's someone I watch sort of similar to Karl Rove, a former Bush administration official who has a big microphone. And Republicans tend to respond when they say something. So let's just see what happens. If these bills fail, which they're likely to do, it might be the best thing for everybody because both sides will have to say to each other, okay, this isn't going to work. What are we going to do next? Now, keep that in your mind because I just want to tell you about another story that's going on today that I think provides us some real perspective. Venezuela. You're in a country which basically has a dictator, Nicolas Maduro. Socialist country. I mean, there is no food. There's no toilet paper. I mean, there's no basic needs for people. Mass poverty, huge corruption in government. And the question is, well, what do you do with this guy, Nicolas Maduro? There's a young politician, 35 years old, that basically is part of the leadership in what could be comparable. It sounds like it's called the Assembly, but I'm just going to make a comparison to what Congress is. And he said yesterday, he stepped up and said, the election that elected Nicolas Maduro was not a real election. I'm interim president. And we're going to have another vote. And the United States of America said, yeah, we support this guy. Because the United States doesn't want Maduro in power. Maduro is not only not good to his people, humanitarian reasons, but he's also really good friends with Russia and China and Cuba and people that don't like us. So he's a bad actor for his people and bad actor for America. So America comes out, they're like, hey, we like this guy. We support him. Nicolas Maduro says to us, get your U.S. personnel out of our country within the next 72 hours. Get them out. You want to know what the United States said? No, we don't follow your rule. We follow this guy's rule. And so now we got to watch Venezuela. It could get really scary. It could get very violent. No one really knows the pathway next. But what an interesting contrast. You're talking about a country where soldiers get paid $8 a month. They cannot survive. So there's an opportunity that there could be a change in power. But it also is controversial because you have other countries saying, hey, look, this is the United States trying to be imperialist and try to change somebody's government when they shouldn't, even though other Central American and South American countries also are lending support to this new guy. Mexico, for example, Mexico is not. So let's just watch what's happening in Venezuela, a place where your vote, if you're a regular citizen, probably doesn't count. You don't really have freedom of speech. If you demonstrate in the streets, you could likely die, and you probably don't have food to feed your family. That's what's going on there. And like, look at us in America where we, we have political problems, clearly, but we don't have those problems. And here we are arguing because we have billions of dollars to spend, how we're going to spend it. So I thought that provided kind of an interesting contrast for us to think about today, because sometimes in the midst of like these big kind of ugly controversies, we're like, it's a good reminder to think about. We have this tension because our government is set up to have this tension. We're supposed to have tension between the House and the White House because we don't want a dictator in the White House. The House is supposed to be a check on everybody because the House controls our money. The Speaker of the House is third in line to be president. Nancy Pelosi could be president if something happens to President Trump and Vice President Pence. But guess what? The Speaker of the House doesn't even have to be a lawmaker. The Speaker of the House could be me if someone voted me in. So there's a lot of ways that our government is set up that is supposed to allow for tension and conversation and debate, because the founders believed that's the way we're going to get to the best for the people. It hasn't always worked. In certain cases, like the State of the Union is a great example. Technology has changed that. Here we think the State of the Union has to be televised, and people are like, look at Nancy Pelosi giving it to Donald Trump. But the truth of the matter is that that's a little bit true. But the State of the Union hasn't always been televised. In fact, Congress says the president should come and give updates to Congress periodically. It doesn't have to happen in January. It doesn't even have to happen yearly. It just is the permission that the president can do it. So I just want you to kind of know that these are things that we think are very hard set in stone that are made to be flexible. And so let's just sort of see what happens as these bills in the Senate likely fail, and we continue to watch, like, how does this tension break? What's going to happen next? So that's just what I want you to know. One thing I just want to show you really quick, because we have a lot of new followers, and I just want to show you guys. I was having problems with Instagram last night, and it's a great format to talk to you, and I love it. But sometimes we have issues with it, and I want to show you something. So if you go to our website, SmartHERnews.com, just as a backup, let's say you're on Instagram and you're like, oh, I really like this card, but I'm curious, like to read a little bit more about this. Let me just show you. Our cards on our website look like this, and they flip when you hit a sunglass. And at the end, you can go to the View Sources page. And what I've mapped out is all the sources for you. So this is a quote from Newt Gingrich, and here's the article where we found the quote and the backstory. And then you have a couple other things to read. So that way, if you want to read a little bit more, you can. And I think that's really important. I had another issue with Instagram. If you weren't on for a few hours this particular day, you probably didn't notice it. It was Instagram and Facebook. There was a problem. And it's just a reminder, like, you need backups to backups to backups. So that's a backup if you're on Instagram and you want a little bit more information. Okay, guys, let us know if you'd like us to cover anything else. We'd love to hear from you. Direct message us or email us at info@smarternews.com. And let's see what happens today. Let's see what happens, right? What's that expression that, like, tension makes the fire? Like, I'm just going to hold out hope that eventually we get to the best case scenario for everybody and compromise eventually. That may be naive. And the facts may not support it at this time. But let's just do that, because we have to remind ourselves, hey, we're not Venezuela. We can have these public discussions because we actually have these certain tenets of freedom. And although they're frustrating, they're actually really powerful. Have a great day. I'll see you on Friday. Bye.